today's video, I'm going to be doing a bake with me, and I just realized I held that bag of chocolate chips upside down. That's okay. I'm going to be doing a voiceover in this video, so hopefully you're okay with that style. I'm just about to clip my hair back here to get it out of my face to make sure that no hair gets into what we are baking. Today I'm going to be baking some chocolate chip cookies, which are just a really yummy comfort food, which I am sure you are all aware of. So I have a glass bowl here. That is going to be for my dry ingredients. So in here I'm just getting my measuring cups ready. That is the 1 cup measuring cup, and we're about to measure 2¼ cups of flour into our bowl. So we're dumping the first one in there, and I'm grabbing the second full cup and getting ready to put it in the bowl. My husband walked in, so I was talking to him for a second. And now I'm about to get the 1/4 cup to put the last 1/4 cup of flour into the bowl. So I'm getting it right there. Alright. It takes a lot to measure and make sure you have precise amounts, because baking is like a science, right? You want to be precise and you want to make sure you have all the ingredients that you need in the correct amount, so that way it turns out well. So you can see I'm holding up the bowl of flour there, so you can see it is measured into the bowl. And then I am getting my next ingredient, checking, and that is going to be 1 teaspoon of baking soda. It just helps them rise a little bit, I believe, and it's just a key ingredient in a lot of baking recipes. And this recipe is just the one on the back of the Nestle chocolate chips bag. Maybe not on Earth, but at least that I've tried. We won't say on Earth, because that is a very big generalization. Alright, so I've just put the baking soda in the bowl, and now we're going to be doing 1 teaspoon of some salt. So I have the Morton iodized sea salt, so I'm going to put that in the bowl with the other dry ingredients. So I'm measuring that out. And because there is salt in the dry ingredients, you want to make sure to use butter that is unsalted. It helps to make sure that the cookies don't turn out too salty. So I'm just stirring the dry ingredients together to ensure that they are all combined with my handy dandy whisk there. And then I'm going to set that down on the counter. Now that the dry ingredients are done, I just set those to the side to get started on the wet ingredients. So, as I had said before, you always want to use unsalted butter if you have salt in your recipe. So I'm just opening up the first stick of butter there to make sure that I can get it into the bowl. Sometimes it likes to stick to the packaging, so you got a good little shake. So moving on to the second stick of butter that will also be going into the bowl. You want to make sure it is softened a little bit before trying to mix it, otherwise it can get, or it's too hard to mix. So I'm mixing it here, stirring. And then once that mixes, we'll add a few more ingredients to it. So, and a tip that I recently learned is that you want to make sure that you soften your butter by just leaving it on the counter for a little bit versus putting it into the microwave, because when you let it soften on the counter, there's, I don't know, something about the chemistry of the butter. I don't know. I have done it in the microwave before, and it doesn't turn out terrible if you do it that way, but I guess it's just better to do it the other way. So I got a spatula here, and I'm using it to scrape the butter out of the whisk attachment spatula on hand to make sure that you get all of the mixture out of the middle of the whisk and off the sides of the bowl. So once all of this gets out, then we'll add in our next few ingredients that we have to the mixture, namely our sugar and brown sugar. Sugar and brown sugar. Okay. So I'm grabbing the jar of sugar and I'm about to put that into the bowl. I got my quarter cup because this recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup of white granulated sugar. So I'm going to measure that out. We've got one. I'm going to add in the second one. And then one more to get our 3/4 of a cup. Now I'm just going to put the lid back on the container and set that aside. And now we're going to add in the light brown sugar. And again, 3/4 of a cup of this ingredient as well. And you want to kind of pack it down into the measuring cup because brown sugar is not as dry as regular sugar. You want to pack it down to make sure that you get the full measurement of the ingredient because it doesn't just like sift into there like regular sugar does. So you want to make sure you pack it down. So now that is all added into the bowl, I'm just going to set that aside. And we're going to mix the sugar and the butter together until it is combined. So mix, mix, mix. That's stirring. And then little wave to the camera. I'm going to take a sip of my drink while it mixes. I just have a Diet Dr. Pepper cream soda, and it is actually so good. And I put it in a recycled cup from a coffee shop that I went to while I was on vacation because the cup was just too cute to get rid of. And now that the sugar and the butter are combined, I'm going to scrape it out of the attachment again, just to make sure that the mixture is actually in the bowl. And then scrape the sides to make sure, again, that the mixture is in the center of the bowl to make it easier to mix together. So I'm scraping, and then I make sure to take the spatula and put it on, or like scrape it on the edge of the bowl so that whatever is stuck to the spatula I can put back into the bowl by like hitting it on the side. So now that is all done, I'm just cleaning off my spatula as I said, and then I'm going to put that back down. And then we have a few more ingredients to mix in before adding our dry ingredients. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, which I love vanilla. It smells so good. It's one of my favorite scents and flavors, so always happy when a recipe has some vanilla extract in it. Putting the lid back on, and then after adding in the vanilla, also need to add in a couple of eggs. So I'm just going over to my fridge to get out the eggs because I forgot to grab them earlier. So I've got a dozen eggs there, and we're going to use 2 of them, 2 eggs. And some people crack one into the bowl at a time, mix it in, and then add in the other egg and mix it in. I don't usually do it that way. I normally just mix them in at the same time. I've not noticed a difference between doing it either way. I don't personally think it makes any difference. So I'm cracking the second egg into the bowl here. it's always important to check and make sure you don't have any shells in the bowl like I'm doing right now. And there were no shells, thankfully. No shells made it into the bowl because that would have been really unfortunate. You have to mix. And you always want to wash your hands after using eggs because raw eggs can carry germs. So I'm just waiting for that to mix, having a little dance party, because why not? And then again, just waiting for that to mix. And I'm going to set the eggs over to the side to make sure they're not in the way of what we're doing. And alright, looks like I just turned up the mixer to make sure that the rest of it got mixed together, because I always like to start it on a slower speed and then bump it up to a higher speed at the end to just really make sure everything's all stirred together. Like especially when adding in the dry ingredients, always start it on a lower setting, otherwise you will end up with a cloud of flour in your face. So very important to start on the lower settings to avoid having a cloud of flour surround you and getting all over your kitchen. So now I'm just scraping the batter, or the dough rather, into the middle of the bowl again, scraping down the sides and cleaning off the spatula. I love these kind of spatulas. I have a big one like the one there, and then, okay, quickly interrupting myself, we're going to add in the first little bit of our dry ingredients. And again, I'm going to start that on a slow mix before bumping it up to a higher mix speed to avoid the cloud of flour. But as I was saying, I have that big spatula like I'm using in the video, and then I have 3 of the tiny ones, which are great for like cooking scrambled eggs, or if you have something really little that you're trying to scrape the rest of it out of like a container where the opening is small. It's great for reaching into there and being able to scrape out what's left. So waiting for that to finish mixing and drying off my hands. So now that I'm just scraping that off, what feels like the 5th time now. But it's an important step because it makes sure that everything gets mixed evenly, because it can be easy for some ingredients to get stuck underneath what's on the side of the bowl or even at the bottom of the bowl, and scraping it and putting it back in the middle ensures that it just gets mixed evenly and you don't have random patches of unmixed ingredients inside your cookie dough, because I don't think that would taste very good to just have a random chunk of flour inside one of your cookies. Alright, so second batch of dry ingredients. Going to get that mixed in, again starting on a lower setting to avoid getting a mess of flour. Taking another sip of my drink and starting the mixer. I am very pleased with this mixer. My mother-in-law lent me this mixer and I love using it. It's a great tool. I have a little snack of chocolate chips there. Always important to sample some of the ingredients, and chocolate chips, that's always a good one to try because hey, chocolate. So turning that off and getting ready to scrape off the bowl again. Scraping and also trying to make sure that the chocolate chips don't fall over and spill everywhere. I probably should have waited a little bit longer before cutting it open, but I got too excited. So again, just scraping the dough back down into the bowl. Alright, now then, we're keeping on scraping. More scraping. A lot stuck to the bowl, especially now that we're adding in the dry ingredients, because it makes more of the dough, so there's more to get stuck to the sides. So it's important to. Oh, and now I'm adding in the rest of the dry ingredients to the mixture. I dumped in the last third of it. I was very excited to film this video for you guys because I really enjoy cooking and baking. More specifically, but I also enjoy cooking as well. But kind of combining two of my passions together is something I was excited to try. I wasn't sure how this video was going to turn out, so I hope that you guys enjoy it. And if you do, then let me know, and I'll try and film some more of these and trying out different recipes, because I'm always down to try some new baking or cooking recipes. Alright, so I got that all scraped. Oh, never mind. There was some more mixing, just a little bit more. Alright, setting the chocolate chips to the side because I really didn't want them to spill on the floor. That would have been tragic. Alright, now mixing is done. And I'm going to remove the mixing whisk, and I'm going to hit it on the edge of the bowl just to get the remaining dough out of it and back into the center of the bowl to mix in with the chocolate chips. Chocolate chip cookies are probably one of my favorite things to bake because they're a pretty simple recipe and they're such a classic, because who doesn't love a good homemade chocolate chip cookie, especially when they're warm and fresh out of the oven. That is definitely my favorite time to eat a chocolate chip cookie. And my husband's grandma, shout out to Mima, she makes some of the best chocolate chip cookies I've ever had. On our vacation, they were with us, and she brought a big batch of her chocolate chip cookies with her, and they were definitely one of the hit foods or snack foods of the trip. Alright, so now that the dough is all scraped down, we're going to add in our chocolate chips. As you see here, I'm struggling to figure out how I want to hold the bag to avoid spilling the entire bag of chocolate chips into the bowl, because while that would be really yummy to have 1 ton of chocolate chips in the cookie recipe, so this recipe used 2 cups of chocolate chips, so I believe this is the 2nd cup I'm adding in here. Yeah. Alright, now I'm just going to close up the bag and set it to the side again so that it doesn't spill. And then I'm going to use the spatula that we used to scrape down all of the dough inside the bowl to fold in the chocolate chips. Because it's a dough and it's thicker, it's easier to fold in the chocolate chips as opposed to stirring it. Just because the texture is more thick than like a cake batter would be. So folding it in ensures that you can evenly incorporate the chocolate chips into the dough. So, a couple fell out. No chocolate chip is left behind, so we re-added that back in. We don't waste chocolate chips. Alright, so just getting all of that mixed in. I'm very concentrated here. I'm thinking very hard about making sure it's all mixed together. But that's kind of what I love about baking, is it can be very relaxing and just a way to kind of decompress, and just you can use it as a time to think about things, or you can use it as a time to kind of distract your brain from life and things going on. But just cleaning off the spatula and making sure that none of the dough fell out onto the counter. Here is our beautiful chocolate chip cookie dough. And before baking them, I usually like to let the dough chill in the fridge for a couple of hours. It just kind of lets it set up a little bit. So I'm going to grab my aluminum foil to put over the top because this bowl does not have a lid. So this just keeps it covered once it goes into the fridge. Alright everybody, I am back because some time has elapsed after putting the cookie dough in the fridge to chill. So there she is in all her glory. Gotta give it a good little smell because cookie dough just smells that good. Alright, here I am getting ready to scoop the cookie dough into little balls to put on my baking sheet. You don't need to spray it because the cookie dough has a lot of butter in it, so it's not going to stick to your pan. I'm just using a spoon to measure out my cookie dough. I'm making 12 right here because it's just me and my husband, so we don't need to make the entire bowl at once. So usually when I make chocolate chip cookies, I'll just bake a big bowl of them, and then just bake them throughout the week whenever we need, so that way I don't have to figure out a way to store, like 50 cookies all at once and then have them get stale. So right now I'm just making 12. So I scoop them out with a spoon and then I just use my hands to kind of shape them a little bit more. I eventually want to get one of those scoopers with the handle that you can squeeze because I think it just helps to make them be a little bit more even because it's the same size measure and I don't have to kind of guess with my eyes about what would be the same on a regular spoon. And my husband walked in again, so I'm just talking to him for a second. Still measuring out some more cookie dough. I'm just trying to space them out evenly as well, because if you end up putting them too close together, then they kind of bake into one another. I mean, it's okay if they touch a little bit as they expand in the oven, because you can always just use your spatula to cut where they touch. But if they're too close together, then it's basically you're just cooking one giant cookie pizza, which cookie pizzas can be good if that is what your goal is. But if you're trying to make individual chocolate chip cookies, then you don't want just one big mass of a giant chocolate chip cookie. So I think I've still got a few more that I am trying to get onto the tray here. Just a few more. There she is, all 12. Alright, I'm going to stick this into the oven for about 10 minutes. There we go. Alright. And while they're baking, it's, the perfect time to just have a little snack. So I'm having some street corn dip, and some tortilla chips that I got at Aldi yesterday when I went grocery shopping. Aldi has some superb snack choices if you are looking for some new snacks to try. Their street corn dip is very good. And they've got a bunch of selections for sweet treats as well, if that is your jam. So just snacking on a few chips there while waiting for the cookies to be all done in the oven. What's one of your favorite snack foods? Oh, I'm just reading the label. To see what is in this particular dip. This one has some street corn, some mayos and sour cream, and then like a bunch of different cheeses, and I think some like red chili powder, if I'm remembering correctly. That chip didn't want to fit in my mouth. These ones are the restaurant style tortilla chips, so they're cut a little bit bigger than other tortilla chips. Yeah. Alright, the cookies are ready to come out, so I'm gloving up with some oven mitts because, you know, you always need oven mitts before taking something out so you don't burn your hands. That would not be good. There's our freshly baked cookies. Here. Just getting that set down so I can close the oven. And then I'll show you guys one more time. They turned out so good. And I actually ended up throwing these back in the oven for one more minute because they still looked a little bit doughy in the middle. Lovely little creation. But I'm going to wrap up the video here. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your